The game Monopoly has come to life at McDonald's.
McDonald's Monopoly game.
McDonald's Monopoly game.
Monopoly at McDonald's is back.
This is winning season new.
Well, Monopoly is back at McDonald's.
The grand prize was $1 million in cash.
2001, there were almost no legitimate $1 million winner.
He's a freaking gangster.
Somebody offers you $1 million.
This thing wrecked so many people's lives.
It was a total scam.
Imagine a game where a simple burger could change your life forever, where every bite holds the promise of winning $1 million. In 1987, McDonald's Monopoly became an instant sensation, making dreams come true with every game piece peeled. But behind the excitement and the golden arches lay a secret, a scam so massive, so intricate, that it stole millions from right under McDonald's nose. How did one man turn this beloved game into a multi-million-dollar fraud? And how did the FBI finally bring it crashing down? This is the true story of greed, deception, and the downfall of the McDonald's Monopoly scam. Chapter 1. The launch of McDonald's Monopoly. It was 1987 when McDonald's, one of the largest fast food chains in the world, launched a marketing campaign that would soon become iconic, the McDonald's Monopoly game. The concept was simple. McDonald's would give out game pieces with every purchase of select menu items. These game pieces mimicked the properties and chance cards from the classic Monopoly board game. If a customer collected matching sets of property pieces, like Boardwalk and Park Place, they would win the corresponding prize. These prizes ranged from free burgers and soft drinks to luxury cars, vacations, and even up to $1 million in cash. The idea was brilliant. People were excited to visit McDonald's not just for the food, but for the chance to win big. The company's marketing team knew they had stumbled upon something revolutionary. Each time someone ordered a large fry or a Big Mac, they were given a game piece. The anticipation of peeling back the adhesive layer to reveal a property or an instant win prize was addictive. The game was easy to play, with no need for special skills or knowledge, which made it accessible to everyone, from children to adults. The campaign was an immediate success. McDonald's saw a significant spike in sales as customers flocked to the restaurants to grab a chance at winning anything from small instant prizes to the coveted grand prize of $1 million. The Monopoly game wasn't just a promotional stunt. It was a phenomenon. It tapped into a deeper human desire for the thrill of gambling, wrapped in the warm, familiar embrace of the golden arches. McDonald's was no longer just selling food, it was selling hope. As the years went on, the game became an annual tradition, with millions of people eagerly awaiting its return each time McDonald's announced a new round. The campaign was perceived as a golden opportunity for everyday people to win life-changing prizes, and McDonald's reaped the benefits in the form of increased revenue and customer loyalty. What no one knew, however, was that behind the scenes, the entire promotion was about to become a symbol of one of the biggest frauds in corporate history, a fraud so shocking that it would not only shatter the integrity of the game, but would implicate dozens of people in a vast criminal conspiracy. Chapter 2. The scam begins. Jerome Jacobson was an unassuming man, the kind of person you wouldn't glance at twice if you passed him on the street. But behind this ordinary exterior was a man who would go on to mastermind a fraud that would siphon millions of dollars from one of the most successful promotions in fast food history. Jacobson worked for Simon Marketing, the company McDonald's hired to manage the Monopoly promotion. His job as head of security was to oversee the printing and distribution of the game pieces, a position that placed him in direct control of the most critical aspect of the entire game, the winning pieces. These pieces were printed at a secure facility, and Jacobson was responsible for ensuring that they were properly distributed to various McDonald's restaurants across the country. Little did his employers know that Jacobson's position would allow him to manipulate the system from the inside. It all started small. Jacobson began by pocketing a few of the smaller instant win pieces, those that awarded free food items or small amounts of cash. But the temptation grew stronger, and soon he was devising a plan to steal the highly coveted grand prize pieces. In the early stages of his scheme, Jacobson would steal these pieces for himself, carefully peeling away the top layer of the game piece to reveal the winning property underneath. However, he quickly realized that the risk of being caught was too high if he was the one constantly cashing in on the prizes. He needed help. Jacobson reached out to a network of friends, family, and acquaintances, offering them the winning pieces in exchange for a portion of the prize money. It was a simple arrangement. He would give them the winning game pieces, they would claim the prizes, and they would split the winnings. The risk was low, After all, McDonald's had no reason to suspect anything, and the winners appeared to be random people from all walks of life. Jacobson's plan was working perfectly. In his mind, he was untouchable. The first few years of the scam went off without a hitch. Jacobson carefully selected people he trusted, handing out pieces worth tens of thousands of dollars. The winners would claim their prizes, keeping up the appearance of legitimacy, while Jacobson stayed in the shadows, collecting his share of the money. No one suspected a thing. McDonald's believed their promotion was working as intended, and the public remained blissfully unaware of the fraud occurring behind the scenes. But as Jacobson's confidence grew, so did the scale of his operation. He began to recruit more people, reaching out to individuals he barely knew, and even allowing his conspirators to suggest others who might be interested in claiming a winning game piece. What had started as a small, contained operation was quickly growing into a web of deceit that spanned across the country. Jacobson was no longer just stealing the occasional winning piece. He was systematically rigging the entire game. By the mid-1990s, the scam had become so large that Jacobson was handing out multiple grand prize pieces every year. His network of co-conspirators had grown to include friends of friends, distant relatives, and even strangers. Each new winner would claim their prize and give Jacobson a cut of the money. In total, Jacobson and his network of accomplices would go on to steal more than $24 million in cash and prizes from the Monopoly promotion. The scam was so well executed that it remained undetected for nearly a decade. McDonald's continued to run the promotion year after year, believing that the winners were being chosen at random from among their millions of customers. But in reality, the game was rigged from the start, with Jacobson controlling who would win and when. The public was none the wiser, and McDonald's unknowingly became a pawn in one of the biggest corporate frauds in history. Chapter 3. The Inside Job. To understand how Jerome Jacobson was able to pull off this massive fraud for so many years, it's important to take a closer look at the inner workings of the McDonald's Monopoly game and how the security measures in place ultimately failed. Simon Marketing was responsible for creating the game pieces, which were printed at a highly secure facility. The winning pieces were treated like cash, locked away in a vault, and guarded by multiple layers of security. Only a select few people had access to the vault, and Jerome Jacobson was one of them. The process for creating the game pieces was supposed to be foolproof. The winning pieces were printed separately from the regular game pieces and were shipped out to McDonald's restaurants in sealed, tamper-proof envelopes. Each envelope was numbered and the shipping process was tightly controlled. Once the envelopes arrived at the restaurants, they were supposed to be opened in the presence of a McDonald's manager and a representative from Simon Marketing to ensure that everything was done by the book. But despite these precautions, Jacobson was able to exploit a critical flaw in the system. He was the one in charge of overseeing the entire process. As the head of security, Jacobson had access to the winning pieces from the moment they were printed until the moment they were distributed. He was supposed to be the last line of defense, the person ensuring that the game was fair and that no one tampered with the pieces. Instead, he became the very person he was meant to protect the game from. Jacobson's position allowed him to manipulate the distribution process with ease. He would intercept the winning pieces before they were shipped out, swapping them with regular pieces. To avoid suspicion, he would leave the rest of the pieces untouched, ensuring that the game appeared to be functioning normally. By the time the winning pieces were supposed to be distributed to McDonald's customers, they were already in the hands of Jacobson and his network of conspirators. One of the key factors that allowed Jacobson to continue his scam for so long was his meticulous attention to detail. He knew that if too many people in the same area won big prizes, it would raise red flags, so he made sure to spread the winners out across different states and regions. He also avoided using the same people to claim multiple prizes, carefully selecting new accomplices each time to maintain the appearance of randomness. This strategy worked for years, allowing him to continue the scam without drawing attention to himself. Jacobson also took steps to ensure that his accomplices didn't accidentally blow his cover. He instructed them to act like regular customers when claiming their prizes, advising them to dress casually and avoid drawing attention to themselves. He even went so far as to coach them on what to say if they were asked how they had obtained the winning game piece. Every detail was accounted for, from the way the winners acted to the way they filled out their prize claim forms. As the years went on, Jacobson's operation became more sophisticated. He began recruiting accomplices through intermediaries, distancing himself from the actual winners to avoid being directly linked to the scam. He even created a network of recruiters who would find people willing to claim the prizes in exchange for a cut of the money. This added layer of separation made it even more difficult for anyone to trace the scam back to him. Despite the growing complexity of the operation, Jacobson remained in control. He was the puppet master, pulling the strings behind the scenes while his accomplices played their roles as unsuspecting winners. The scam was so well executed that even McDonald's own security team never suspected a thing. To them, the winners were just regular people who had gotten lucky. A retired school teacher from Florida, a truck driver from Texas, a single mother from Illinois. But in reality, every single one of them had been handpicked by Jacobson to claim their prize. Chapter 4. The fraud expands. As Jacobson's scam grew, so did the stakes. What had started as a small operation involving a few $1,000s in stolen prizes had now ballooned into a multi-million-dollar fraud. Jacobson was no longer content with pocketing the occasional $10,000 or $25,000 prize. He was going after the big money. The million-dollar prizes, the luxury cars, the vacations, all of it was up for grabs. And Jacobson was determined to get his hands on as much of it as possible. To do this, Jacobson needed more people. His small circle of friends and family was no longer enough to keep up with the growing scale of the scam. He began reaching out to people he barely knew, offering them a cut of the winnings in exchange for their help. These new recruits were often friends of friends or distant acquaintances, people who had no direct connection to Jacobson, but who were willing to take part in the scam for a chance at easy money. Jacobson's network of accomplices expanded rapidly. By the mid-1990s, he had dozens of people across the country working for him, each one ready to claim a winning game piece whenever he called on them. These accomplices came from all walks of life: business owners, stay-at-home moms, even a former police officer. Some were involved in the scam for years, while others only claimed a single prize before disappearing from the operation. But no matter who they were or where they came from, they all had one thing in common. They were willing to lie, cheat, and steal for a chance at a piece of the pie. Jacobson's operation became so large that it was no longer just a game of chance. It was a well-oiled machine, designed to siphon millions of dollars from McDonald's without raising suspicion. Every step of the process was carefully orchestrated, from the moment the winning pieces were printed to the moment they were claimed. Jacobson controlled every aspect of the operation, ensuring that the scam continued to run smoothly year after year. But as the scam grew, so did the risks. With more people involved, the chances of someone slipping up or getting caught increased. Jacobson knew that if even one of his accomplices made a mistake, the entire operation could come crashing down. To minimize the risk, he took extra precautions to ensure that no one involved in the scam knew too much. Each accomplice was only given enough information to claim their prize and nothing more. Jacobson kept the details of the operation close to the chest, never revealing the full extent of the scam to anyone. Despite these precautions, cracks in the operation were beginning to show. Some of Jacobson's accomplices were getting greedy, demanding larger cuts of the winnings or threatening to go to the authorities if they weren't paid. Others were becoming careless, bragging about their newfound wealth to friends and family, or spending the money in ways that drew attention. Jacobson tried to keep things under control, but the more people he brought into the operation, the harder it became to manage. Still, the scam continued to thrive. Jacobson's network of accomplices continued to grow, and the money kept rolling in. By the late 1990s, he had stolen more than $24 million in cash and prizes from the McDonald's Monopoly game, and there was no end in sight. To the outside world, it seemed as though the promotion was still working as intended. Regular people were winning life-changing prizes, and McDonald's was raking in the profits. But behind the scenes, the entire game was rigged, and Jerome Jacobson was the man pulling the strings. Chapter 5. The FBI Investigation. By the year 2000, Jerome Jacobson had become so confident in his scam that he began to take bigger risks. He continued to expand his network of accomplices, reaching out to people he barely knew, and even allowing his conspirators to suggest others who might be interested in claiming a winning game piece. The scam had grown so large that it was no longer just a small, contained operation. It was a sprawling network of fraud that stretched across the country. But Jacobson's confidence would soon become his downfall. Unbeknownst to him, the FBI had gotten wind of the scam and had launched an investigation, codenamed Operation Final Answer. The investigation began with a tip-off from an anonymous source who had become suspicious of the seemingly random winners of the Monopoly game. The tip led the FBI to Jacobson, and soon they were watching his every move. The FBI quickly realized that they were dealing with a complex and highly organized operation. Jacobson had covered his tracks well, and it would take more than just a few wiretaps to bring him down. The FBI decided to take a different approach. They would set up a sting operation to catch Jacobson and his accomplices in the act. The sting began with undercover FBI agents posing as movie producers who were interested in making a film about the McDonald's Monopoly game. They reached out to some of Jacobson's known associates, offering them money in exchange for information about how they had won their prizes. The associates, believing they were speaking to legitimate filmmakers, began to spill the details of the scam. Little did they know that every word they said was being recorded by the FBI. As the sting operation continued, the FBI gathered more and more evidence against Jacobson and his network of accomplices. They recorded phone calls, monitored bank accounts, and even set up hidden cameras to capture meetings between Jacobson and his conspirators. Every piece of evidence brought them one step closer to bringing down the entire operation. In August 2001, the FBI made their move. They arrested Jerome Jacobson and several of his key accomplices, charging them with conspiracy to commit mail fraud. The news of the arrests sent shockwaves through the country. The McDonald's Monopoly game, which had been a beloved tradition for so many years, was now the center of one of the biggest corporate frauds in history. Chapter 6: The Sting. It was a warm morning in the summer of 2000 when Jerome Jacobson's life would take a sharp turn, though he didn't know it yet. The mastermind behind one of the biggest frauds in corporate history was sitting comfortably in his Florida home, confident that his well-oiled machine of deception was running smoothly. He had been living the good life for years, anonymously wealthy out of the public eye, with a network of trusted friends and accomplices. He had gamed one of the most iconic fast food promotions in the world for over a decade, walking away with millions in stolen prize money. But like all good things, Jacobson's scam was about to come to a crashing halt. The FBI had been quietly observing Jacobson for months, thanks to a tip that had made its way to federal investigators. It had started small, as most tips do. Someone close to the operation had noticed that something wasn't quite right about the way certain people were winning the top prizes. There was a pattern. The winners weren't ordinary McDonald's customers, and many were connected in ways that defied statistical odds. Enter Operation Final Answer. The FBI needed more than just a few suspicions. They needed hard evidence to take down Jacobson and his network. To gather it, they launched a complex sting operation. FBI agents posed as members of a fictitious movie production team, reaching out to key figures in Jacobson's scam under the pretense of making a documentary about the winners of the McDonald's Monopoly game. The agents promised that these winners would get their time in the spotlight, along with a hefty payday if they were willing to share the stories behind their big wins. The operation was brilliant in its simplicity. The FBI knew that many of the scam participants had grown comfortable over the years, and that comfort led to loose lips. Jacobson had taught his network how to keep a low profile when claiming prizes, but as the sting rolled out, some couldn't resist the lure of attention and money. Slowly, the FBI gathered confessions from multiple winners, each one unknowingly providing key details that painted a clear picture of Jacobson's multi-million-dollar scheme. A critical break came when Gennaro Jerry Colombo, one of Jacobson's key middlemen, got careless. Colombo had been an integral part of the operation, helping to distribute the winning game pieces and collect shares of the winnings. But Colombo was boastful. During one fateful conversation, he let too much slip to someone outside of the conspiracy. That person tipped off the authorities, and the FBI quickly zeroed in on Colombo as a potential informant. Faced with the possibility of prison, Colombo agreed to work with the FBI. The agents arranged for Colombo to secretly record a conversation with Jacobson, where they hoped Jacobson would incriminate himself. The plan was risky. Jacobson was cautious by nature, but Colombo played his part well. During their meeting, Jacobson casually discussed the operation, recounting how he had smuggled winning pieces out of the production facility and distributed them among his network of accomplices. It was exactly what the FBI needed. They now had enough evidence to move forward. On a quiet morning in August 2001, the FBI executed their plan. Jerome Jacobson, along with dozens of his accomplices, was arrested in a coordinated sweep across the country. The arrests made national headlines. For years, the McDonald's Monopoly promotion had been a cultural phenomenon, and now it was at the center of one of the most significant fraud cases in U.S. history. The FBI had not only uncovered a massive corporate crime, but also laid bare the inner workings of a highly complex criminal network. Jacobson had been meticulous in his execution, but in the end, it was his own arrogance and the greed of those around him that led to his downfall. Chapter 7. The Court Cases. The legal proceedings that followed the FBI's sting operation were nothing short of sensational. By the time the case went to trial, the McDonald's monopoly scam had captured the attention of the entire country. It wasn't just about the millions of dollars in stolen prizes. It was about the betrayal of trust. Millions of Americans had believed that they stood a fair chance of winning big in the McDonald's promotion, only to find out that the game had been rigged from the inside. Jerome Jacobson was at the center of it all. As the mastermind behind the operation, Jacobson faced charges of conspiracy to commit mail fraud, a federal offense that carried significant penalties. Prosecutors painted a picture of Jacobson as a man driven by greed, someone who had used his position of power to manipulate one of the most beloved fast food promotions in history. But Jacobson wasn't the only one in the hot seat. Over 50 people were arrested in connection with the scam, and many of them were facing serious jail time. Some of the defendants had been fully aware of the fraud, willingly participating in the scheme in exchange for a cut of the prize money. Others claimed they had been duped into the conspiracy, insisting that they had no idea the game was rigged when they claimed their prizes. Regardless of their level of involvement, all of them were facing charges that could potentially put them behind bars for years. The courtroom was filled with tension as prosecutors laid out the details of the scam. They presented evidence gathered from the FBI's sting operation, including recorded conversations, bank records, and testimony from key witnesses like Gennaro Colombo. Colombo, who had been one of Jacobson's closest associates, testified against his former partner in exchange for a reduced sentence. His testimony was damning, providing the jury with a detailed account of how the scam had been carried out and implicating Jacobson as the ringleader. Jacobson, for his part, chose to plead guilty. He admitted that he had orchestrated the scam, expressing regret for his actions and blaming his downfall on greed. He told the court that he had initially started taking the winning game pieces out of curiosity, but as the money started rolling in, he became addicted to the thrill of outsmarting the system. Despite his guilty plea, Jacobson's remorse did little to sway the judge. He was sentenced to 37 months in federal prison, a relatively light sentence given the scale of the fraud. Jacobson was also ordered to pay restitution to McDonald's and the other victims of the scam. For many of the other defendants, the penalties were more severe. Some received prison sentences of up to 5 years, while others were ordered to pay back the prize money they had fraudulently claimed. In total, the defendants were ordered to pay more than $12 million in restitution, though it was unlikely that McDonald's would ever see much of that money. The court cases marked the end of one of the largest corporate frauds in history. But while the legal proceedings had concluded, the fallout from the scandal would continue to be felt for years to come. Chapter 8. Impact on McDonald's and Public Perception. The McDonald's monopoly scam rocked the fast food giant to its core. For years, McDonald's had been a trusted brand, known not only for its food, but also for its promotional games. The monopoly promotion had been a huge success, driving sales and creating a sense of excitement among customers. But now, the very foundation of that promotion had been shaken. The public had been duped, and McDonald's was left to pick up the pieces. The company's first move was to issue a public apology. McDonald's expressed deep regret over the fraud that had been committed under their watch, acknowledging that the scam had damaged the trust customers had in the brand. They promised to take swift action to ensure that such a scheme could never happen again. McDonald's also announced that they would be terminating their contract with Simon Marketing, the company responsible for running the Monopoly game. Simon Marketing had been responsible for printing and distributing the game pieces, and McDonald's felt that the company had failed in its duty to maintain the integrity of the promotion. In addition to cutting ties with Simon Marketing, McDonald's launched an internal investigation into how the scam had been allowed to happen. The company implemented stricter security measures and oversight for future promotions, determined to rebuild the public's trust. They also took steps to compensate the customers who had been affected by the scam. McDonald's offered refunds to anyone who had participated in the Monopoly promotion during the years that the game had been rigged, and they promised to uphold the highest standards of fairness and transparency in all future promotions. Despite these efforts, the damage to McDonald's reputation had already been done. The public felt betrayed, and many customers began to question whether they could trust the company. Sales took a hit as customers boycotted McDonald's, unwilling to support a company that had allowed such a massive fraud to take place. It would take years for McDonald's to fully recover from the scandal, and even then, the Monopoly game would never quite regain the same level of trust it had once enjoyed. But while the scam had damaged McDonald's reputation in the short term, the company was able to weather the storm. They quickly launched new promotions, this time with even greater security measures in place, and slowly but surely, they began to win back the public's trust. McDonald's remained a dominant force in the fast food industry, and while the Monopoly scandal would always be a dark chapter in the company's history, it ultimately did little to affect the company's long-term success. The McDonald's Monopoly scam also had a lasting impact on the way other companies approached their promotional games. The scandal had exposed the vulnerabilities in large-scale promotions, and many companies began to implement stricter security measures to prevent similar frauds. The McDonald's Monopoly scam may have been one of the largest frauds of its kind, but it also served as a wake-up call for the entire industry. Chapter 9. Aftermath and Pop Culture. The McDonald's Monopoly scam became a part of pop culture almost as quickly as the news broke. People were fascinated by the story of how Jerome Jacobson had manipulated one of the most iconic fast food promotions in history, stealing millions of dollars in the process. It was a story that had all the elements of a Hollywood thriller: greed, deception, and a mastermind who had outsmarted the system for years. The story quickly became the subject of numerous articles, books, and documentaries. In 2020, HBO released a documentary series titled McMillion, which delved deep into the details of the scam. The series was a hit, drawing in millions of viewers who were captivated by the story of how one man had managed to pull off such an audacious crime. The documentary featured interviews with many of the key players involved, including the FBI agents who had worked on the case, and some of the scam participants who had been caught up in Jacobson's web of deception. McMillion also shined a light on the human side of the scam. Many of the participants had been ordinary people who had gotten caught up in the excitement of winning a life-changing prize, only to later find out that they had been part of a massive fraud. Some expressed regret for their involvement, while others maintained that they had been unaware of the scam. The documentary gave viewers a behind-the-scenes look at how the scam had been carried out, as well as the toll it had taken on the lives of those involved. The McDonald's Monopoly scam also inspired a number of fictionalized accounts, with writers and filmmakers drawing on the story for inspiration. The idea of a mastermind manipulating a seemingly fair game for personal gain was a theme that resonated with audiences, and it wasn't long before the story found its way into popular culture. Whether it was in the form of a podcast, a book, or a documentary, the McDonald's Monopoly scam remained a topic of fascination for years to come. Chapter 10. Lessons Learned. The McDonald's Monopoly scam was a cautionary tale, not just for McDonald's but for the entire corporate world. It showed how even the most well-intentioned promotions could be vulnerable to fraud if proper security measures weren't in place. It also highlighted the dangers of unchecked greed and the lengths to which people would go to satisfy their desire for money and power. For McDonald's, the scandal served as a wake-up call. The company learned that it needed to take a more active role in overseeing its promotional games and ensuring that they were conducted fairly. McDonald's implemented new security measures, including stricter oversight of the production and distribution of game pieces to prevent future tampering. They also made a commitment to transparency, promising customers that they would do everything in their power to ensure that future promotions were fair and honest.